What are our top rogue decks for November 2023? Make sure you guys smash the living crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more Oz content. We're going to toss Memento over here to kind of start things off. Somebody's going to be like, why Memento? Well, here's the biggest thing I got to tell you about this deck. If you start to see the big, scary, bony boss monster hit the field and your opponent has the trap cards, you're going to lose the game. That's all there is to it. All right, this deck has what we're going to call the surprise factor because nobody is going to read these cards. It's a lot of the reason why a lot of these rogue decks tend to do very well. Unpreparedness, fresh new card smell. I swear the new card smell does tend to really ruin a lot of these players' day. And let's call it what it is at this point in time. Big scary boss monsters with extremely good cards with people on a local level, you're probably going to do well. Now, obviously, we are going to continue to see power-ups for this deck probably through the next couple of months. So that'll be something that you'll be able to strengthen your strategy with. Yeah, I can't wait for that. The Bony experience. Next up is Minkanko. How many times have we had this deck on the Rogue tier experience? Somebody's going to comment down below and they're going to go, well, Robbie, you just won a YCS. It's tier 1. Winning a 250-man YCS does not change the fact that this deck will forever be Rogue. All right? The fact that the monsters reflect damage because opponents have zero clue on how to respond to this deck. They see Ohimi, Hare, Water Abereske, you're suddenly you're stealing opponents' monsters. You're doing things that they've never seen before. That's the Minkanko experience. It's because now that we put the deck into the spotlight, maybe it won't do so well anymore. Oh, wait. It's also got Warrior Toolbox strategies built into it as well. Yeah, buckle up. I don't stand by the fact that people think that this deck is not that good because, oh, yes, it is. All right, you just got to know what you're doing. And speaking of Warrior stuff, Infernal Noble over here as well. Let's call it what it is at this point in time. We all know that Infernal Noble is one of those decks, but hey, Warrior Toolbox stuff. Technically, some of these Infernal Noble decks could be playing some Minkanko cards. I don't highly recommend it, but let's call it what it is at this point in time. You are doing Angel's Ring to set up the spell negate. You're looking at your opponent. You're like, did you draw the Dark Ruler no more? Nobody's playing the Dark Ruler no more at the moment. No. Dark Ruler has been very much backseated for a majority of this meta. It's a cool card, but if Angel's Ring had more of a place to have a little bit of something worth negating, I feel like it would do better. But Infernal Noble is also very much the high roll of the meta, it feels like. So you have to be able to obviously toggle through the high rolls to get to those good results so you can actually kind of do your thing. Next up here is Vanquish Soul. Vanquish Soul is going to go in a lot of the same category as a lot of these other decks right now. And it's, if the duelist isn't prepared or knows how to, knowledge. It's a very strange thing. If you don't know where the choke points are on the Vanquish Soul player, you're going to lose. There's also a such thing as, holy crap, the Vanquish Soul player opened up the literal nuts, and there's nothing that you can do about that. That's what we call the high roll experience with the deck. And being able for them to roll Kaiser Varius and the rest of the other stupid good cards. It does happen. It's a very unfortunate thing, but there's not really a lot that you can tend to do about that. So, yes, we are going to put Vanquish Soul. It did just have some massive regional success out of the past week, but for now, I think that the deck does check a lot of the marks for being one of the more interesting rogue strategies that you can kind of mess around with and find success with. Next up is Sprite. Sprite, it hasn't been tier 1 for a little while. I do think that the deck kind of still sitting at the top of the table in terms of one of the better decks. You can still play Sprite, Nimble, Beaver, just / Runic Pile, and you can still do well. It's just the deck has to grind so much harder against the rest of the meta that you tend to not. I don't feel like a lot of your matchups are all that favored anymore. And that's kind of why Sprite feels like it's been pushed into more of this rogue corner over here. It's just, you still have the same combo lines that you do, and you can still do some of these crazy things, but like your end boards just feel giga subpar anymore, that you don't get the chance to really kind of achieve what you're trying to do. Now, if you're trying to splash this, that's an entirely different story for success. Next up is going to be Salaman Great. You know, Salaman Great kind of feels like it rode off into the sunset. Anybody else notice that? You know, pre-Age of Overlord, the deck was coming top 16 in a lot of these regionals, and ever since Age of Overlord hit, I feel like it's kind of gone dormant. Now, obviously, once we get the Link 3, that could potentially change. But I'm still going to leave Salad down here in the Rogue category. Technically, you can toss Marincess into this slot if you wanted as well. They are very much interchangeable for what you want to see for Rogue. Cyber's good stuff with a form of interruption. Yay, that's kind of what they are. But Salad still is one of those decks that you need to be aware of. And if you're not fully aware of, you know, Roar Rage, you know, the choke points for the deck, all of a sudden, you know, you didn't open the Nibiru, well, you're going to have a real problem on your hands. And that's full combo. And then we have Rika Sun Avalon, the Europe experience, as we're going to call this. Now, I get told every single time, no, Robbie, this deck is tier 1. No, it's Rogue, all right? That's why Minkongo just won a YCS. It's Rogue. Rika Sun Avalon won a YCS. They're just better decks consistently in the room. Well, Robbie, you don't understand the power of the deck. Well, yes and no. I do think that the deck does suffer to a lot more of the problems of the meta. And I mean, let's be honest here, Zombie World is starting to show up a lot more everywhere. You can also thank Flunderees for that, because being able to stop your opponent from tribute summoning is great. But I just can't see this deck in any other light. It feels and checks all of the marks for being a rogue deck, but that means that you can still top with it. There's nothing stopping this from being a tiered contender, all right? And that's, I think, something that people kind of miss. Next up is the Synchro good stuff. So previously we mentioned, you know, you had TG, you had the Synchro, Yusei Fudo Turbo, you have the recent edition of the Jack Atlas deck. Any of these Synchro piles are actually 100% viable. All right, you know what? We're even going to toss Blackwings in here as well, because we've seen Blackwings also doing well on the local levels. Well, actually, all 4 of these particular decks you can do well with at locals, and you can win. All right, it's just your opponent has to winning some dice rolls. All right, that's a lot of the current game is, did I win that dice roll? Are we getting that good setup? You know, are we going to be able to, you know, get this full combo board set up here and be able to play the game? If you can check all of those marks, every one of the Synchro combo decks will light up, and you will have no problem whatsoever playing them. Next up is Marincess. Now, earlier I said you could interchange Salad with this in terms of placement. You can. Marincess really has not had much change, honestly. The deck is just full combo line. You ask your opponent, did you open up Droll and Lockbird? Did you open up Nibiru? If they say no, you end on this huge Aqua Argonaut that is going to be a problem for the opponent. And that honestly is the thing that makes the deck good. All right, the fact that you are able to see this, it's basically protect the towers board. You know, you put your big monster on the field, your opponent doesn't have a physical response for it, you're good to go. All right, protect the castle. That's all it is, and it tends to work out. Especially with Nibiru seeing a lot less play right now, you're going to get a lot more free real estate out of this. So a lot of things to consider is if your opponent's not going to check the marks, you'll be able to play the game. And the last but not least is actually going to be Exo Sister. Now, Exo Sister did have success out of YCS Indy. The next YCS weekend didn't really check the boxes. That's fine, all right? I think that a lot of people are going to be kind of underestimating some of this stuff kind of going forward here, but that's some of the things that you are going to have to consider. You know, obviously a rogue anti-meta deck that manipulates the graveyard needs to kind of run into some of those matchups, and as long as tier is going to be, you know, a competitor, this deck should be fine. So that is all that we have for Rogue for you today. What do you guys think? Please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think. I'll see your beautiful faces back at Learning Day, guys. Peace out.
Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.